What's up guys, Nathan here back with another solo video, and today I'm going to be discussing the importance of pacing, specifically in anime, and go over some examples that do it right and some others that do it wrong. Watching some of the anime currently airing got this idea in my head, so we'll look at a few of those and some older ones. Pacing is, without a doubt, one of the most important aspects of an anime. It's important in storytelling in general, but in a medium that consists of 23-minute-long episodic adaptations of serialized manga, it is vital to have proper pacing. First of all, what is pacing? Well, that's pretty simple. It is the flow of the story, the very lifeblood of it, if you will. In basic terms, it is the pace at which a story is told. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean the actual time that passes within the story, but the pace at which the events of a story occur and how much time each event takes up within a story. That last part is the key, as the audience needs to feel like the events that are given more time also have more weight, and that the ones that are passed over quickly are not as significant. If this isn't the case, then oftentimes very important perhaps reveals or emotional moments may not feel earned or hit nearly as hard if they are not given their proper time. On that topic, pacing also matters in terms of setup and payoff. It's important to pace things in a way that the audience feels like progress is being made and there is going to be payoff coming up. One way that this is achieved is by making there be mini setup and mini payoff occurring constantly, which builds into an enormous story-length setup and payoff, essentially creating a pyramid of setup and payoff. If not, the audience can feel like they're watching a story that's just meandering around with no clear goal or endpoint, and so they lose interest and stop watching. Alright, now time for some examples. First, I want to look at Hell's Paradise and Oshinoko, as they both have distinct emotional moments in both of their first episodes. However, where Oshinoko hit me hard, Hell's Paradise, while not falling completely flat, felt very rushed and meaningless in many ways. The first episode of Oshinoko did an excellent job of setting up the character of Ai by following her life through the idol industry, giving us some backstory into how she got into it, then revealing things about her inner turmoil and how her lies have infected her psyche and completely destroyed her mental state, to the point where she doesn't know what is real and what is fake anymore. Before revealing her mental state, it was set up at the beginning of the episode that everything is fiction and lies, giving particular emphasis to this. Because of this, it doesn't come as a shock to the viewer that Ai feels this way, and then when Ai is eventually killed, it feels absolutely devastating, since we have sat with this character for the past hour and a half, getting invested in their story, only to see them tragically ended so abruptly. We get to sit with the kids in the moment as they mourn their mother, and the scene isn't cut short, but spends just the right amount of time on it for it to really hit. At the same time, it doesn't feel overdone and lingering for too long, and so the pacing of the episode is perfect, and hits all the right beats for me in terms of pacing, as the episode moves fast through most of Ai's daily life, but gives the weight it needs to the important scenes of characterization and mystery. Also, it's set up at the beginning that the story was about lies, and so killing off Ai does not feel out of place and just for shock value, but is incredibly relevant to the themes of the story. Now, looking at the first episode of Hell's Paradise, we are introduced to Gabimaru as this emotionless killer who doesn't care about life. Yet the executioners can't kill him as his body seemingly does not want to die, and so obviously there is more beneath the surface that is going to be revealed. And so over the course of the episode, we get more of Gabimaru's backstory of how his parents were killed right in front of him, he was trained to be an emotionless killer from birth, and about his relationship with the village chief, as well as his wife, and why he ran from the village. Now, obviously backstory is great, but it really feels like this is being thrown at us really fast, and like the creator is telling us, hey, you need to feel bad for this guy. He had a really hard life. But we're only 15 minutes into the episode, and it just feels like it's kind of getting shoved down our throats. Anyway, then in the climax of the episode, Sagiri convinces him that his wife is the reason he wants to live, and that he should go to the island and get the elixir of life so he can be pardoned and go back to his wife. And what's crazy is then immediately he realizes it's true and proceeds to join her in killing all the guards and setting out to find the elixir. Now this to me just doesn't work, as it doesn't feel earned at all. It feels like we just got backstory after backstory pushed at us so this guy can have an instant realization and 180 in his personality and goals within the span of 18 minutes? I mean, it just feels cheap and unearned. Why did he not ever think about this before? Why was he so willing to leave his wife, and yet now he instantly is able to fully care about her? It's so odd and so abrupt that it feels more jarring than emotional. at least for me as an anime only. For me, the pacing just felt way too fast, and I think if the anime slowly built to that realization over a few more episodes and much more naturally, it would have hit way harder. Now, before you come at me in the comments saying, well, the Oshi no Ko episode was an hour and a half, and the Hell's Paradise episode was only 25 minutes, so comparing them isn't really right. Well, yeah, their length is exactly the problem. The creators of Oshi no Ko understood they needed that length in order to have the proper build-up, and so they chose to spend that amount of time because they understood the importance of pacing in anime when dealing with emotional moments. In Hell's Paradise, they did not realize the amount of time they needed in order to have the story make sense and have that emotional payoff. Now, switching gears a bit, let's look at Kaguya-sama and Spy X Family, and do a comparison between them, as they are both slice-of-life comedies, which, on top of having good comedy, require incredible setup and payoff in terms of character development or story development to keep audiences interested and not feel like the anime is just going through lives of these characters without any change or progress. Looking at Kaguya-sama first, the show sets up from episode 1 that this story is a romantic comedy that will follow the life of Kaguya Shinomiya and Miyuki Shirogane until one can get a love confession out of the other. And so, each 12-episode season has followed their relationship, with major romantic developments occurring both midways, but especially at the end of each season. And so, 3 seasons later, their relationship has changed completely from what it was in episode 1, and as a member of the audience, I am still so interested and invested in how it will continue to develop. Throughout the show, there has also been incredible development of characters like Ishigami, Chika, and Ino, which has kept me very invested. The pacing of the show so far has been perfect, as I can visibly point to spots of progress throughout the story, and so I don't just feel like the story is going to go on and on and on without any sight of a conclusion. Now, unfortunately, on the opposite side of these things, at this point after a full 24 episodes, Spy X Family feels like a bloated, meandering mess of a show that is a chore to watch. Sure, I am still enjoying a lot of the comedy between the characters, but at some point, once that wears off, I am going to have no reason to continue watching, since there has been little to no progression of the story from a plot or character standpoint. Anya is still just a telepath stuck on just 1 out of 7 stars in her journey to become an Imperial Scholar, Lloyd is still just observing her at school trying not to freak out while doing other missions on the side, and Yor, well, honestly, she has got a bit of development and starting to maybe having feelings for Lloyd. But honestly, there has been barely any changes in the trio's relationship with each other, with their own internal struggles, and most of all, the thing which we were promised in episode 1 to get development on throughout the show. Nothing has progressed in regards to Lloyd's mission to stop Donovan Desmond, other than running into him for the first time in episode 24 of season 1. Honestly, it was mind-blowing to look back on how much has occurred, yet how little it has felt like the story has progressed, and when you compare it to something like Kaguya-sama, it is night and day. Honestly, it feels like the anime is moving at a snail's pace, and if in season 2 things start happening, it's gonna feel very jarring because we've gone from crawling to a full-on sprint. Spy X Family has just seriously let me down in terms of being invested in the show, since it is paced so badly that nothing feels like it matters, so why should I feel like the show matters? This ultimately is the question that good pacing answers, as each event leads into the next to progress and progress and progress the story, so that the audience can follow the flow of the river until they themselves are swept up right into it to follow it to its end. Now, one thing I want to touch on before I wrap up this video is that I think many anime suffer because they are manga adaptations, because what makes a manga well-paced does not necessarily make an anime well-paced. This is because in the manga, the reader can follow along panel for panel at their own pace, taking in each moment for as long or as little as they want, as they fill in the motion between the panels in their mind. This gives the reader the ultimate control of the flow of the story, and so when transitioning to anime, if the studio doesn't have a good grasp of the manga's pace, stuff can often feel rushed or too slow. This is why the adaptation requires not only a talented team, but also a team who deeply cares in order for the adaptation to be done right. That way, rather than being pulled around by a thrashing current, the audience is gently dragged forward by a steady, gentle flow. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate it if you would like, comment, and consider subscribing, as it really helps the channel. Also, thank you guys for 250 subs. That's a crazy milestone, and we are so grateful for the support. Again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.